Welcome to Plants, People, Science, a podcast of the American Society for Horticultural Science, where we talk about all things horticulture. I'm Kurt Rome, professor at the University of Arkansas, and I'm joined today by our co-host, Samson Humphrey. Hey, Sam, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kurt. We are here at the American Society for Horticultural Science Annual Conference, and this is our first live episode in 2 years. Thank you, everyone in the audience, for coming. Could you introduce the podcast and what we do?
Well, podcast is interesting. It's actually something that one of the programs at ASHS. We like to feature ASHS members who do amazing things in their laboratory, the field, or the classroom. We tend to have topics that are a really broad audience. We'd like to reach out and let people know about horticultural science. We have a podcast team. I know we are the two voices, Sam and I, but we have a team behind the scenes. So we've got a research team. We have a planning team that helps us pick the topics, a research team that researches those topics, and then we have a production team that produces the podcast. We do about 4 or 5 a year. Although this year I think we're going to have about 8. But the idea is just to tell neat stories about how cool horticulture is and how amazing horticulture science is. So, Sam, tell us a little bit more about you.
Kurt, I have just started my PhD program at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I don't think we've actually had an episode since I've started there. It's going really well, and I'm finding all sorts of wonderful research ideas here, listening to talks at ASHS and planning my PhD research. So I'm doing well. I do culinary herb research, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, great. I forgot to tell you, congratulations on your master's degree. That was big. I really enjoyed listening to your seminar and your presentation for your defense, but congratulations on that, and congratulations on your appointment in Tennessee. I look forward to seeing the work that you're going to do on your dissertation. I've been having a good conference so far?
I have. I've seen you talk, I think, 3 times, and it's been amazing each time. I've attended a few workshops. I've attended many different lectures by students. It's really exciting also to see everyone talking to each other, making connections, seeing the older generations of horticulturalists and their students and their students all talking together. What about you, Kurt? What have you enjoyed here?
Well, this is my 45th year of coming to SHS meetings, and I really enjoyed the science, but I think now at this stage of my career, what I really like are the friendships, the scientific and the academic friendships I've made, the colleagues. It's to me a little bit like a family reunion. When we all get together, we catch up, we are sharing what we're doing and what's exciting us. But I've been enjoying that, and I've heard some really good presentations, and I saw some good posters, and I was impressed with the quality of the graduate student science that I've seen. So there's good science being done, and the fun is always in the hallway and the networking.
That's true. And there are so many diverse topics being covered as well. So many different fields that I haven't been a part of, but that I'm learning about just by being here and having conversations like the conversation we're about to have today.
When I say our friends, longtime friends and colleagues that we developed through the ASHS, that's our guest today. Our guest today is Dr. Carl Motsenbocker from Louisiana State University. Carl and I have been associated because we have similar interests and we have taught similar classes and done similar research for a while. So let's get into today's topic. What I thought we would talk about today, we have got one of the ASHS experts on local foods and food systems. Again, Dr. Carl Motsenbocker. Welcome, Dr. Motsenbocker.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here today.
How's it going for you? Are you having a good meeting?
I'm having a great meeting, and there's just too many different sessions that I would like to go see, different topics. So it's exciting for me, and to also meet up with old friends and see people I haven't seen since last year. at this meeting.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I think I've become more a generalist as I've aged in horticulture. So I said, Dr. Motsenbocker, you and I have been friends a long time. May I call you Carl for this?
Of course, yes.
Well, good. Carl, tell us a little bit, give us your background in what you do and maybe, give us your 3-minute vita.
Okay, I'll do my best in 3 minutes, but I'm a professor of horticulture. I was first hired to teach and to conduct vegetable research, but now I have kind of expanded. I have an extension appointment with 3 statewide extension programs. We have the Grow Louisiana Beginning Farmer Training Program. We have the Louisiana Farm to School Program. And I am the SARE PDP, the Sustainable Ag Research and Education Co-State Coordinator. So those 3 extension programs. And then I have a teaching appointment. I teach 4 classes. Right now, I'm actually teaching a vegetable crops class while I'm not here. I have good people back home that are helping me with that. And I teach a sustainable agriculture course, and I teach organic gardening and sustainable crop production class. And then I have a LSU in Thailand study abroad class.
Yeah, where you and I overlap is I did a lot of work early on about food systems and local foods and sustainable food production. And I got very interested in community gardening, school gardening, farm to school kinds of programs. So tell us, what's exciting to you? I mean, you moved from vegetable production. Louisiana's got a pretty strong commercial vegetable production, and that's growing at scale. And all of a sudden, you have gone to this different scale. What motivated you to go from focusing on commercial production to these other aspects of scale and of a local food system?
So that's a good question. I still remember when I was teaching my first vegetable crops class. I won't tell you how many decades ago, but I realized that it was too late to reach out to college students, that we need to reach out to the younger people. So we started doing service learning projects with my vegetable crops class and then my organic gardening class. They would learn how to garden, and then they would go out in the community. Learning by doing is better because you are actually understanding more when you teach somebody else. And so I started doing that. And actually, I go back, after I got my undergraduate degree, I was working in Thailand, and I had my first school garden. I was like 24 years old and trying to figure out what to grow and how to sustain that. And actually feeding people in a village, feeding the children because they didn't have a school lunch program. So it kind of feeds all the way back, and that's like 40 years ago.
That's a very similar journey that I took. When I started working on sustainable and organic production systems, that kind of led to food systems, and then that led to the components of the food system that are smaller scale, not only backyard gardeners, but really gardeners and farmers in the urban and peri-urban environment and school gardening. And like you, I taught a class and will teach a class called Community Institutional School and Public Gardening. It kind of focuses on the management of that. So what excites you about gardening at that scale or that component of the food system?
So for me, when I was teaching my organic gardening class, I was using Elliot Coleman's book, the Organic Grower. And that is basically a husband and wife making a living on 5 acres, which many people would say, that's impossible. And that was 30 years ago. And then I had some students that had been in my class, they are farming, and then they said, this is like 10 years ago. Look, there's the Market Gardener. You got to read this book. His premise is 1.5 acres for a husband and wife, like 2 people, to make a good living. And then Elliot Coleman, he scaled down to 2.5 acres now. So, and we have a beginning farmer training program, and we really focus on small scale, intensive growing, where I think there's a really good niche for local food systems in shortening the food chain instead of relying on grocery stores and food coming from California and Florida into our state. So I think that is what really has been exciting to me. And then we also bring in my former students that are farming. They come in and say, I was in this class, back 12 years ago. And I'm farming now, and we go visit. There's a husband and wife. They have a farm like 6 miles from campus. So we take the students out there, and they get to see exactly, yeah, you can put that into practice, and you can do it, and you can enjoy. It's hard work, but it's working outside. You're your own owner. You're your own business. I think there's really good value in that.
That's amazing. So in these few decades of experience that you've had, really getting to know the farmers and being very involved at a local level, how has your job, how has your work changed over time? Your perspective? I'm curious about that.
Well, that is actually an excellent question, because I started to reflect more on this, because I have to determine when I'm going to step down, when I'm going to stop doing this. And it really has, because I was focusing more on commercial, larger scale vegetable production. And I realized that not everybody can do that. You can't borrow the money. Land costs are pretty high where we are. And this is a model that can work. And so it has been interesting to be able to have funding. Without the funding, I couldn't do this. And literally right now, we have 5 extension associates working on these 3 extension programs. Plus we have part-time people. And it's been more of managing people. The hard part for me has been to have to give up control and trust people. And we have really good team members. We share, and they could literally tell me anything. And I've learned to get criticism. I ask my students, and they know they can tell me, well, that lab was horrible.
Right, yeah, students can be really honest, and I'm impressed how often farmers tell me what I do and I do not know well. So
Yeah.
I want to go to one aspect of this. That you teach a course in sustainability, several courses in sustainability, and that's been kind of a focus effort for you. Why are these small scale local foods, why do we consider them as a sustainable component of our food system?
Well, I guess it relates to what our local food system is and how we need farmers. I mean, we have a dearth of farmers, at least in our state, in many places. The number of farms has been going down, acreage is going up. There's a lot of debt. We don't have much support for our horticulture producers. They don't get a government check like some of the row crop farmers do. So I think in terms of sustainability, in most of these farmers that are becoming farmers, or most that take my organic gardening class, they are non-traditional students. They don't come from farms, and they want more environmental stewardship. They want the community. And I find that whole group of young people are very much different than our older farmers. They're willing to share. They're willing to have people come on their farm and learn and to work with them. It's really, and it really excites me to see this. They are building community. And even within my class, they'll be out there harvesting plots for our food pantry, and they'll be talking and enjoying just being outside, and it's fun to watch.
Yeah, with the decline of vegetable production in Louisiana that you made, I mean, it appears to me then that these kind of farms are filling a gap, filling a need, and provide fresh food locally. And what's the farmers market situation in Louisiana like?
Yeah, that's just like the rest of the country. The number of farmers markets has increased. And that is one of the avenues that I think young people that are trying their hand at farming, it's a good place to practice, good place to meet the community, meet buyers, or people who are buying, see what people want, what kinds of quality, what do people need. So we look at that as just one component, but New Orleans is a great market for restaurants. And I know some farmers are able to sell, fresh local product. The nice thing is the product is often like a day old, and it's fresh. It's brought right down to, the farmer's market or to restaurants. So there's a great opportunity. The farm in Baton Rouge, Fullness Farm, the two that took my class, she actually got her master's with me looking at soil health on her farm and looking at 3 different stages: fresh ground, ground that they had worked for like 2 or 3 years, and then ground they'd worked at for 5 years, and looking at that. And she taught, helped me teach my class for like 3 years, and to have that person in the classroom, a young person, working with students. I mean, I'm an old person, an old white male, and I acknowledge that. But we have to give the young an opportunity. But it'd be difficult for them to be in my space right now with all that we have going on, and to balance, home life and work. So, but it is exciting. It's an exciting time to be in local food systems.
So one of the things about local foods that you mentioned that it kind of resonated with me is that the opportunity, because they have shortened the supply chain from the farmer to the market or to the consumer, that delivering fresher produce, which in a lot of cases may mean higher quality, because it can be harvested more mature, and no product deterioration through the supply chain, delivery chain, but it also eliminates some significant parts of the cold chain, and so that the energy requirements might be going down. Is that really true too? I mean, if you're harvesting it on Friday and delivering it to a restaurant on Saturday to be consumed Saturday and Sunday, that's a significant difference in refrigeration from something that was harvested last week and then having to be transported in a refrigerated container and then held in a distribution center. And
Right. Yeah, I think that is one of the environmental stewardship aspects, the sustainability aspect, shortening the food chain. Product is harvested at perhaps better quality, instead of green, mature tomatoes, fine ripened tomatoes, peak ripeness, peak flavor, delivered, and they don't have to be stored as long. And the market is closer. So yeah, less transportation costs, less cooling. So all that kind of fits into that particular system.
So you talked a bit about these growers being hungry for information and even being your graduate students, becoming your graduate students. I'm curious if you could elaborate a bit on your efforts to meet that need for information. How do you reach out to all these people, and what does that look like?
Well, we were fortunate to have a USDA Beginning Farmer Rancher Development Program grant. So we developed Grow Louisiana. It started in 2019. We ran it for 3 years in different parts of the state. At that time, we didn't have many mentors for these small scale farms. But since then, we've had a cohort going through several of them. But we with our program, like we usually do farmer meetups. We don't usually advertise. We let the farmers advertise, and then we support them getting together with networking. With the Sustainable Ag Extension Program, we do farmer trainings. We did a farm tour last year in a town west of us, like 4 different farms, and we had over 120 people part of that tour. As a day-long tour. So that's kind of the activities that we have. But the Grow Louisiana program is a year-long program, 8 sessions in the spring, a couple summer trainings, and then 8 in the fall. So we're actually in our 6th fall training. We have a couple more, and then there's going to be a farmer meetup. So this new cohort, along with other farmers that are in that same vein, and we often see them, like we'll do a tour where the farmer meetup is, and then they'll be talking and making, connections and sharing ideas. And I think that's where we're really seeing more of, instead of the traditional classroom learning.
Yeah. What sort of information are they hungry for? Are there any hot topics going on right now?
So I think soils, and this is something that I'm not as well versed on, some of the new, like we would say, newer ideas about soil health and how to benefit. And a lot of them don't like to use synthetic fertilizers. So how do you build up your soils? How do you sustain that? Another is marketing. And usually when we work with farmers, marketing is the first topic, unless you have a market. And also integrating livestock into horticulture, because we're seeing more and more diversified farms where they have chickens, and they're collecting, other livestock products to use as fertilizer. So it's kind of going back to the way sustainable farms used to be 100 years ago.
As part of the food system and the market chain that these growers might utilize to help sell their products, what's the development in Louisiana like, and in your area, about farm to school programs where farmers might sell directly or as an individual or through a cooperative to a school? Is there much activity in farm to school programs, and have you been involved in those at all?
Well, that's a very good question, because I actually have, it's kind of a long story, but I'll tell you, it may be good to give you an idea how I got into it. So I was doing service learning projects at schools, and then I applied for a USDA Farm to School Conference grant back in 2013. We put on a conference in Baton Rouge and 2 other regional conferences. And then I applied I went to a Farm to School conference in Austin, Texas, and I had like a 2 or 3 week window to apply for a specialty crops block grant. And I wrote a small grant to do harvest of the month, basically 1 fruit or vegetable each month, and celebrating that. And so we did a pilot where we went to 3 schools around the state, and we introduced that as sourcing local. So we had to kind of coordinate that. And then our Department of Education and our Department of Ag and Forestry had passed a resolution through our legislature without any funding to start a farm to school program back in 2016. So the Department of Education literally called me on the phone and said, "Hey, Carl, you want some money to do farm to school?" And phone call again, and I literally waited for 2 months because I was teaching. I had all this, we're all working. It's like, well, how much money are you going to give me? Is it just, $20,000, $30,000? So it actually started 2017. And we also apply for USDA Farm to School grants. We've had several of those. There was several pots of money, and most of it goes through the Department of Education, and then it comes to us. So we have a conference. Our conference is next week. So I was working this morning trying to meet with some of our team. We have a team meeting every Wednesday. So that's how it's gotten in. And you asked about, so farm to school has like 3 tenets to it. The first we would usually consider is growing food at schools, like school gardens, or maybe aquaponics, or growing in the classroom. The second would be curriculum. So educational programming, often about agriculture, nutrition, healthy eating, but it could be using a garden for an art class, or for a writing class. And the third is purchasing local. So procurement is the third piece. And our program actually works in all 3 pieces of that. And we had a full-time person that was a school nutrition director. We brought her on 2 years ago. I have a former teacher that's our curriculum expert. We have a communications coordinator. We have a program director. She had worked in extension in Tennessee for like 7 or 8 years, and she's our program director. And I have a former student of mine. She is working like part-time. She's actually working in all 3 of my extension programs, and she helps me teach classes. So it's a very dynamic situation for me right now, but it's been exciting to have, to be working for so long and be not having much funding, and then all of a sudden, to have funding. So we put out a series of sustainable gardening guides for school and home gardens, basically organic guides. There's like 17 of those. I'm still working on 2 or 3. We have a whole nother series that without the USDA funding, my administration would not give me for an extension associate. So that's just an example. And we have harvested them on videos that we developed. The one unique thing about the curriculum is we made sure that all of the lesson plans are tied to state standards. So when I used to go approach schools about doing farm to school, they said, "Oh, we're busy. We got to teach to the test. We got to teach to the curriculum." So these lessons are tied to the curriculum. So it's like, oh, I can use this, and everything we have is on our website, and you can download that. We have posters, we have recipes, we have, a conversation guide. How does the school system talk to farmers? How does the farmer talk to the school system about buying? We have a whole host of materials that are there, and so it's been a lot of fun to kind of create this from literally almost nothing.
Wow. And to get funding and be able to work on something that's so impactful, that must be really exciting. I'm so curious about the range of students you reach. You said that maybe by the time students are in college, maybe it's a little bit late and we should be reaching out to younger students. What does that range look like to you, and how do those students vary by age?
So we try to survey and find out who uses our Harvest of the Month. So it's open for people to register, and we give them the materials, and then we try to get them to respond. But it's K through 12, so kindergarten through 12th grade. Our focus is primarily 3rd through 5th grade, because I think that's probably the best time to get kids to be excited about horticulture, about where their food comes from, about eating better. And we recently, about 2 years ago, we started with our early childhood education. So there's a group, and we recently, like, I gave a talk to a group up in the northern part of the state, and then next week on Saturday, I'm giving another, just a brief overview of, this is what our program is, and we are developing curriculum for them to use for the little kids. And the other bright spot is Louisiana 4-H has picked up our program, and they're using Harvest of the Month for their weekly meeting times. And so it's been interesting to see that kind of come together with us. And we have a pilot of putting together for 8 different commodities, working with 4-H to kind of test that out. So that's been exciting. And to have my team, there's 5 of us, 5 plus me. It's been a real blessing to have them, because they are as excited as me about this.
Yeah, you mentioned that in the class that you teach on school gardening and community gardening, that it's a service learning class, and so you have a campus community garden. Did I hear you say that? And you're growing for your food pantry?
Yes, that is correct. I have a 2000 level class, organic gardening and sustainable crop production. And a major component of that is students will grow using the market gardening method of a bed top on 4-foot centers, 30 inches and then 20 feet long. And then we also grow community beds that they will harvest and give to the LSU food pantry. And that's part of the service. So they start from beginning to end. They make their own transplants, they do their own direct seeding, and we also have them transplant and direct seed into community plots.
And so they're also, besides learning that horticultural skill, and they're addressing food insecurity needs for other students and faculty and staff on your campus. That's a really wonderful thing. So learning while serving, what a novel idea. Great class.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I think the major clientele group is probably graduate students, international graduate students that may not have as much funds. And right now I'm teaching my 4000 level vegetable crops class, and they don't have individual plots. They're just going to be growing for the food pantry. And they select out of a hat if it's going to be a transplant and a direct seeded crop. And they have to spend the semester growing that. So that's kind of a fun thing for us. And
do you have any stories about students who have done that and really enjoyed it?
Yeah, I'm giving a talk on Friday on this. Actually, I gave one yesterday, but some of the quotes. So I know I had one last fall. They said, "I lost weight, I ate better, and I didn't have to go to the grocery store as much." and one was like, we can do this. It's not that hard. I mean, that's what a lot of them, they realize it isn't that difficult. As long as your soil is good, your conditions, and you have all the equipment, it actually is, it's not that hard a thing to do.
So you said you've already given a paper at the conference, and you're going to give another one. Tell us what are your two papers that your presentations you're making?
So the first one was in the teaching section yesterday, and it was about my organic gardening class and growing food for the LSU food pantry. And we brought in like 2,400 pounds of fresh product over the semester, and then into the spring, because we usually have carrots and cabbage that's still left. And then on Friday, in the local food systems section, I'm giving a talk about harvest of the month, but about the videos that we have developed and how many views we've had. And also, we have developed a series of videos, horticulture videos, like 3 to 5 minutes long for the teachers, because the teachers are like, okay, it's August, what do we plant? So we give like an overview of the fall semester, and then, how do you make transplants? How do you direct seed? We have a series of 8, and we're still making them. The best one probably was end of the spring semester. What do you do with your garden, right? School gardens, because that is, you come back in the fall and it's all full of weeds, right?
Right.
So that's been fun. And Izzy Frank, she's one of my. She was the one that she graduated like 3 years ago, and she came back, and so got somebody young and more vibrant than me doing that one. And Crystal Essie does the Harvest of the Month videos.
That's amazing. I find the video idea really fascinating. I was talking with herb growers a couple weeks ago, and they were asking us researchers for videos. And personally, I prefer to read. I would prefer like a blog post, and I'm really curious about your thoughts on ways to reach out to growers. What do they want?
Well, I think the younger growers, the 20 and 30-year-olds, they like podcasts, they watch videos. Yeah, it's surprising to me because I will ask and they say, hey, have you listened to so-and-so? And it's like, no. For me personally, I like to read also. I can digest it better. But I think it's a different way of learning. And so we need to be cognizant of that in our classes too, giving them, instead of just standing up and lecturing, they want videos, they want a little more dynamism. And so that's, and I think the hands-on is something that with the classes that I can, we try to do hands-on horticulture. So I think it's a skill, being able to grow food. Everybody should know how to grow food, where our food comes from, the importance of what we eat.
You mentioned you're giving these two presentations. They both have abstracts with them. They were very interesting. I think our listenership, those that are listening out there, will probably be very interested. They will be published. Those abstracts will be published in our supplemental Hort Science journal. And so I think that information, I would really think that the information that you presented would resonate with some others that want to start those kind of classes and have those kind of service learning opportunities on campuses across the United States. So listeners, you'll be able to find that in Hort Science in the future. And I assume that you wouldn't mind if they reach out to you.
No, they could reach out. I can send them a PDF of my presentations too. And our website is seedstosuccess.com. That's the farm to school website. And we have 3 different sections, one of which has all our gardening publications, and then we have curriculum there. And yeah, so that actually it's a website we develop outside of our university, and it's actually really nice. I hate to say that. But
And you said that's where students can find your videos as well?
the videos are there, and we have a YouTube channel for the Harvest of the Month videos, Louisiana Public Broadcasting, LPB, they have them all there. And then we also have a YouTube channel for our Seeds to Success program. So our program is called Seeds to Success, the Louisiana Farm to School program.
Carl, there might be some listeners too that are younger in the career than you and I are, but might want to be following in your footsteps. So, in your view, what are some of the big challenges, some of the next big questions, or the exciting things that those of us that are working on food systems and local foods, what do we need to tackle next to, improve local foods as a component of our food system?
Well, that's a good question.
Well, great. Thank
Yeah.
you for that. I appreciate that.
I think, I think for me, I think it's important to listen to our farmers and listen to our students and see what they want and what their needs are. And I've been just sitting back and like, I had a student that graduated and I asked her, she was farming, are you happy? Are you making enough to live and enjoy your life? And she was taken aback at that. But I did that before I started our beginning farmer training program because I wasn't going to start that program if I knew it wasn't going to benefit. Right. And I think we have to be intentional about what we do, but often it's serendipity where we end up. I think we're right where we were supposed to be. In our lives, we just kind of follow a path, and it just happened that we made certain decisions. And so, you just got to let things flow. I think if that makes sense for a young person, kind of look forward and see, where do I want to be 10 years from now or 5 years? And what do I need to do to get there? But there may be other paths that are open on the way there, and you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you can't anticipate what doors might open.
Right.
And I asked you a very difficult question. I recognize that, Carl, because if we understood all the questions right now, we'd be working on those questions. But there will be new questions, and especially with the changing environment, climate change, changing economic needs. I think there'll still be a lot of opportunity for some really great work on local foods and food systems.
But there was a question in my talk that somebody asked, is anybody doing research on the market gardener model? And I don't think there really has been much. And that would be a great opportunity for like a grad student to actually go on 4 or 5 farms and document all their inputs, and how they market and their profits. Because to be honest, some of my colleagues on campus, when I said, a farmer and his wife can make a living on 5 acres, they just don't say anything. My ag econ friends, they just don't believe it. But I know in our state now, we have people that are doing that. And there's money there.
My last question for you, or feel free to ask your own last question if you would like. I'm not going to ask if you're happy, but I'm going to ask, what about your work makes you happy? What about it? What brings you happiness?
Yeah, as a professional horticulturist.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Sam. I really like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I've actually been reflecting more and more about my life and why I am what I am. But I love horticulture. I love plants. I like to see people enjoying themselves, and I enjoy culture. Kurt, you and I, we travel. I do travel, and I go visit farmers markets or grocery stores, any place in the world, just to see what's available in food. And so I think I really feel blessed in the job that I have, and it's going to be hard to step away. And I'm always worried that they won't hire anybody for my position, that it just fade away, and all this is just going to end up slowly gone. And that's the danger, right, that we have.
Yeah, well, I've often heard that we're all replaceable, but in some ways we're maybe a little irreplaceable. So, well, Sam, I think this has been a really kind of interesting, good conversation.
I think it has. I feel very hopeful hearing about the networks of farmers that are talking to each other and that are helping each other and that are sharing information. I didn't realize that there was such a community out there for local farmers, and I'm feeling very hopeful about it. That's such an interesting thing. And I hope that I can fit some of this into my career. So thank you for telling us about yours, Carl, and you're shaping young minds even as you attend the ASHS annual conference.
Thank you for letting me come here and speak, and it's been enjoyable. It's good to meet you. So
Good to meet you too.
Yeah, Carl, it's always good to connect with you. I know we share mutual interest in these aspects of the local food system, and as you know, I've come to visit you some to see what you do. For our listeners, again, I want to remind you that you can look up Carl on the internet, Carl Motsenbocker, Louisiana State University, and tell us again your website where some of your resources are.
So you can go to the LSU Ag Center website. If you Google me, Carl Motsenbocker, it's Motsenbocker. My profile page is there, but our farm to school website is seeds2success.com.
Seeds2success.com. And his abstracts, his presentation will be published in Hort Science in our supplement that it will include all of the abstracts for the presentations and posters at this conference. Well, it's been a good conference, Sam, and today, actually right now, we're at the geometric halfway point. So we've still got half of it to go, but it's starting to wind down quick.
I don't know. I have so many talks still on my list. I don't feel like it's winding down at all. But thank you to everyone who was able to attend in person today as well. It's really exciting for us to have a live episode since we're always just doing it through our computers, and we never get to see our listeners. And it's just wonderful to see so many wonderful faces here. So thank you.
Sam, we have a question from our audience. So hold on a second. We're going to take the microphone over. Please introduce yourself and tell us what your question is.
Hi, my name is Alice. I'm at Louisiana State University. The question is regarding the program in the schools. I guess, at least in Texas, there are some schools that are in more rural regions where it seems like a lot of the students may already have more access to learning about gardening and agriculture, horticulture, that sort of thing. But coming as somebody who grew up in a city, I know at least my school didn't have any of that. So how do you choose which schools to bring this program to, or do they come to you?
Okay, that's a great question. Your question was rural versus urban, and how do we decide which schools are working with, or do they come to us? Basically, we have materials that are on our website, and we do trainings, and we don't focus on rural versus urban. I would say in terms of local food systems, we have food deserts in rural areas too, and there's problems with food access. And so, but yeah, we have, right now we have we have Food Farm to School Institute. That's an adapter from Vermont, and we have four school districts, two of which are urban and two are rural. And so it just depends. Yeah. It depends on the interest. So part of what our job is to just let people know around the state that, yes, this program exists. These are the benefits. This is how you use the program. And that's how we try to support the expansion of our programming.
Well, thank you very much for that question, Allison. Thank you again, Carl.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
So this was Science, People, and Science podcast of the American Society for Horticultural Science, where we like to talk about everything related to horticulture and plants. If you want more information about the American Society for Horticultural Science, please visit our website, ashs.org. You might want to consider membership and the benefits of membership, including the ability to publish discounts in our publications, discounts at our conferences. But American Society for Horticultural Science, ASHS. Sam, thanks for being here today. I've enjoyed it. I look forward to our next conversation.
I'm excited for it. Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for listening.
The ASHS podcast, Plants, People, and Science, is made possible by member dues and volunteerism. Please go to ashs.org to learn more. If you're not already a member of the ASHS, we invite you to join. ASHS is a not-for-profit, and your donations are tax-deductible.
This episode was hosted by Samson Humphrey and Kurt Rowe. Special thanks to our audio engineer, Andrew Sheldorf, our research specialists, Lena Wilson and Andrew Sheldorf, our ASHS support team, Sarah Powell and Sally Murphy, and our musician, John Clark. Thanks for listening.